Hi there, so I'm going to do a video today about painting rust. I'm going to do one of them using mainly paints. I'm going to try and minimise how much washing I do. I'm going to try and do mainly washes on another one, and in the last one I'm going to use a product which is aptly called rust, and I'll show you a couple of different ways of utilising this product. It's not the cheapest product and it does have various warning labels on the back, but it is a very good product to use. So the first one I'm going to do now is I'm going to do the one using paints, and you want to get your oldest brushes that you've got. As you can see, these brushes are absolutely knackered. These are the best brushes I found for doing rust. What you want to do is you want to start with a base layer of a dark brown, so I use Rhinox hide, and you want to get any of these busted up brushes and you want it to be a random effect. So let's say rust quite often builds up in crevices, so let's make all of this rusty here. Let's make it all rusty up here. Dab a bit of that off, a little bit too much. It's somewhere between a sponging motion and a dry brush. So you can also do rust on the top there, just so it doesn't look so out of place. But you are doing something between a sponge and a dry brush. If there's too much, just wipe it off, and then what you've got there, you can just spread out a little bit. So I'll let that dry, and then we'll come back to the next colour. Okay, so that's dried off now. So now I'm going to move on to Mornfang Brown. This is a very warm brown, almost with a hint of orange in it, so I find it perfect for doing rust. So you want slightly less on your brush for this, so you can either wipe it off on paper, or you can just wipe it off on your palette or your hand or whatever you want to wipe it off on. And then what you want to do is you want to paint this inside the other paint. This is going to be your main kind of rust colour. So again, pointing out, this brush is absolutely done us. It is almost a sponge at this point. And you do want a random effect, so if you want to add your fingers to it, you absolutely can. And all you're doing is building up those layers. Top of the areas that you've already done. So I will say that the effect with the paint is a relatively subtle kind of rust effect. Can you see that there? It is a relatively subtle rust effect. So I'll leave that to dry for a second and then we'll go in for another coat. Okay, so that coat is now done. Let's go in with another coat of the same colour. Just simply, again, going inside the area that we've already done. Bringing that out just slightly, and like I said, it is quite an orangey brown, so it is very good for a rust effect. Okay, Now what some people do is they now go back to their slightly darker colour, because you really do want this to be blended in as best as you can. So I've wiped most of it off now, and the bits that are looking a little bit too orange, you can just go over randomly, blend some of that in. Okay, wait for that to dry and then we'll move on to the brightest colour to finish this off. Okay, so what you want to do now, as I've said, it's quite a subtle rust effect. So at this point you could just add some orange and leave it there. Or you could bring it up that little bit more. You take a little bit of your brown. You put it on your palette. And you grab a little bit of Jaquero orange. Just a little bit. And all we're going to be doing is adding that to the Mornfang. It will come up a kind of almost a flesh kind of colour, and we are also going to be relatively sparing with this because it is quite a light colour. Again, if you do too much, you can wipe your finger on it, you can spread it out, you can change the direction that you're doing it on. Okay. So that looks relatively uniformed at the moment. I would then go back to my Mornfang. There's lots and lots of back and forth with rust because it is just not a very clean, it's not a clear colour. It is made up of multiple different colours, multiple different layers. The more you do, the more variation you'll get on this rust. And you can just keep going back and forth between all of those colours. If it's too light, add some Minoxide. If it's too dark, add some more Mornfang. All you're doing is just layering this up. Until you get to this kind of messy brown colour. Something like this, until you don't kind of have any kind of pattern at all. And then what you can do at this point, this is the only point I would use a slightly better brush, is get yourself a really bright orange. I know it looks really bright, it looks really intimidating at this point, but trust me. Find the bits that are more kind of orangey. Just do tiny little dots. If it looks too bright, blend it in. All you're doing is stippling on a little bit of orange. There. So I would call that probably done for me for the rust. Hope that's showing up well on the camera there. That's how I would paint rust with paints. The next one will be far quicker, and I'll go over using washes on this one, and then we'll have a look at dirty down. So as is the way with creating content, I did originally do another part of this video where I was doing this second piece with washes, but I just don't really like how it came out. It doesn't really sell the rust effect to me the way I wanted it to. I'll quickly run through what I did. So I used a wild wood contrast, I then did a snakebite leather, and then I did an Agrax Earthshade wash and a couple of dots of rust. But I don't really like the outcome compared to using the paints, so I haven't done a full how-to guide on that, simply because I just don't like it really. So I'm going to stick with now showing you the rust effect. So you need to give the rust effect a really good shake. It has a agitator already in there. Make sure you give it a good shake until the agitator is moving around, otherwise it sticks to the bottom. Now this is a very odd product. I found the best results for this is to mix it with water. I would definitely use one of your very worst brushes for using this product, because it will kill your brushes. So I'm going to do all of over here with neat rust, and then I'm going to mix the neat rust with water, and I'm going to show you the different effects that it will give you. So if you use it neat onto the model, that's it on neat, and now I'll just add a little bit of water onto here, and I will add rust and water over here. And you guys will see the different effect that it will give you. Right, so I'm going to leave that to dry, and then I'll show you what we can do with it after that. Once you've left it for 5 minutes, you get this really lovely different pattern with it. So this one here has had the water added to it, and it gives it kind of a rusty stain. And this one is just the neat rust from the pot. But what you can do from there is, if you get a little bit of water, you can reactivate the rust effect, and if you just do a few dots in various places and pull it around, it will give you a totally different effect. So if I just do a few dots like that, and then if we leave that to dry, you'll see that it's reactivated, and it will give it a totally different pattern. So the areas that I've added the water to, it's now got these orangey kind of sections where I've done it neat, and it's got these yellowy kind of sections where I've used the watered effect. So you can just keep continuing push this around, randomly dot different areas keep reapplying, keep pulling it around, and it will continue to develop into this lovely rust effect. So the areas that you reactivate with the water are going to be the areas that are going to be the orangest and the yellowest. And you see that? Now it's dried, almost dried. You can see it's gone really orange in there. And it just has such a lovely kind of colour to it. And all that is applying this either neat and adding water over the top just to break that up, or applying this with water and then reapplying to get this kind of effect. And I'll be honest, if you leave this to dry naturally, I've used a hairdryer on this and it does speed up the process, but if you do leave it to dry naturally, the orange will come out much more vibrant and much nicer. But this is my go-to method for doing something rusty, as simply painting just doesn't have the same depth as the rust product, but you can get relatively close with stippling and adding some orange. It's just not as random as this one is. But yeah, get some of this rust paint, give it a go, mess around with it. You can keep applying water, pushing it around, keep reactivating it. Yeah, big fan of this product. So that was my video today, just covering off different rust effects and how they kind of can be used. I hope that was useful for everyone. Leave me a comment if there's anything in particular that you would like to see. This is just something I wanted to go over. I don't often use that much rust on my models as such, but obviously I do use it sometimes being an orc player. I hope that was helpful, and there'll be another video coming soon.